Hello everyone, Chris Peterson here. I wanted to bring you another chess commentary on one of my tournament games. This is going to be my second round game from the 2014 Denver Chess Club Championship. This time I'm going to be playing against Dean Clow, a soon-to-be expert from the Denver area. Dean is kind of like my British doppelganger. He likes to play video games, he does web development, he loves to play chess. And we generally have a good time when we go to a tournament together because we have a banter going on and we play some blitz or whatever. So typically I do fairly well against Dean. I have one loss against him, which was at the 24-hour marathon tournament where I hung a piece in one of the later rounds. It was like 2 in the morning or something, and I was doing well in the game and then I just hung a piece. It was really bad. But since his rating has been climbing pretty quickly, it's kind of hard to judge how strong he is. Sometimes he plays really well, and then others, not so much. In this game, well, let's just see what happens. So he started d4, I played e6, bishop f4. So this is the London system again, and it seems to be really popular in Colorado. A lot of up-and-comers are playing it, and I have played it for years. It's really easy to get solid, simple positions, or to accumulate devastating attacks. If you want a solid white opening, I would suggest this. You won't hold an advantage, but you'll have a stable structure and have really easy play. So I played b6, e3, bishop b7, knight f3, then knight f6, bishop d3, and c5. This setup in particular from black is one that gives me a lot of trouble when I play the London system. I hoped it would do the same against Dean. c3, bishop e7, knight b to d2. Castles. Now, Dean is a hyper-aggressive player. He always goes for obvious attacking ideas. It's very easy to slip into a lost position against him, so I have to tread really lightly here. h4. So he wants to go g4, g5, h5, g6, those kind of ideas. Very simple, but very effective, so I have to be extra careful. d6, queen e2, knight b to d7. So Dean mentioned during, after the game, that he wanted to try g4 here. The move, it's not very good, but it opens up a lot of possibilities on the king side. Answering e5 is really good here because you want to answer flank attacks with play in the center. Alternatively, you could play c takes d4 first, but I kind of like striking at the center immediately. Then maybe something like g5, ef4, gf6, bishop f6, castles queenside, and rook e8. And black's position is really solid. White is going to have a long way to prove that the gambit of the g-pawn was sound. But instead of doing that, he played h5 right away. So I played c takes d4. I probably should have done c takes d4 earlier, but better late than never. E takes d4, and now rook e8. And my plan here is very simple. But it's also very strong. I want to play e5 and open up the center. This will distract play away from my king and give counter-attacking chances. So Dean played knight e4. Better maybe was to play castles queenside. I think it's the right time for white to castle, get away from the center, which is about to explode. Then maybe I'll go knight d5. Something like bishop g3 and now h6. Both players are really solid here. It's hard to say that there's an advantage one way or the other. I prefer black due to the dynamic nature of his pieces, but Either side is perfectly safe to play. But instead of playing castles queenside, he played knight e4 right away. Well, he probably shouldn't have been thinking about knight e4, but he went knight e4. And now, very strong move here, e5. So black has an extra piece in the center, this rook on the e8 square. And white's king is still uncastled. Soon this detonation that's going to occur in the center is going to favor black. Because I have this extra rook on e8. So yeah, it's eyeing this stuff here. So d takes e5, probably the only move. Everything else looks really bad. D takes e5. And then Dean played bishop g5. And, of course, the pawn cannot be captured, as it loses really badly. So let's just see, knight takes e5, then a series of forced trades, and now simply bishop d6, and that knight's going to end up falling. Something like this might happen. And now black's up a piece and should be clearly winning. Alternatively, if he takes with the bishop, it kind of transposes. And now we reach the same position where black is down a piece again. And there's not many variations to that, it's just white loses a piece. So he went bishop g5, one of the better moves. Now I played knight takes e4. Also bishop takes e4 was good. Bishop e7, queen e7. So all these moves are pretty much forced, because I'm capturing things and he needs to recapture, otherwise he's going to be down a piece. Queen takes, and now knight c5. And my knight is going to a lovely home on d3, and there's really no way to stop it. So then queen e2, e4, and now we can see that everything's kind of lining up on this d3 square, and my knight's going to hop in there. Knight d4, knight d3 check, king f1, and white is in big trouble now. I have this outposted knight on d3, which is attacking everything, and his rooks aren't connected, so he hasn't even finished his development yet. And meanwhile, his attack on the king side is just delayed. There's no possibility of an attack on the king side anymore. So black has everything going for him, and even though material's equal here, you can see that the computer is really favoring black in this position, just because of all these trumps. So I played queen to g5, and this threatens knight f4, which would be hitting both the queen on e2 and the g2 pawn, which is practically undefendable. And here Dean made a really big blunder. He could try to defend with a move like g3, for example. This is the best defense, but now moves like f5, f4 are going to be pretty strong. As I said, white's attack is just nil at this point, so black pretty much has all the time in the world to do whatever he wants. Another defensive line might be rook h2, but that's pretty passive, so that's not that great. So instead he tried rook h3, and this has a pretty good tactical idea behind it, but it just doesn't quite work. So I continued with knight f4, and now he played rook g3. And this is Dean's best chance to give the rook back and without losing everything in that position. And the thing is that I can play queen takes g3, knight takes e2, and be up in exchange. But I don't have to take the rook. The thing that scared me was that if I go queen h4, for example, I guess I can just do this. So if I go queen h4, he's got this tricky shot, rook takes g7. And so if I take on g7 now he can play knight f5 check. And now I'm losing my queen, and this Well, actually, I guess it's not too bad for me. I guess. Oh, because I'm hitting his queen as well. So I'm still up in exchange in this position. So it's not too bad. But there's no reason why I need to even go into that, because instead of playing, so if I go queen h4, rook g7, of course instead of taking the rook, I can actually just sidestep a move like king h8. And now suddenly I'm threatening mate, I'm on his queen, his rook is hanging, everything's hanging, and he's going to have to give up a lot of material. So yeah, you can see the computer is just plus 16 at this point. But this rook takes g7 thing kind of scared me a little bit, so I just, instead of doing the right thing and actually calculating it, I just got lazy and just played queen takes g3, and this makes the position a lot more difficult to win, because now I'm up in exchange, but for it I have no entry points. My rooks have no way to enter his position, so I'm going to have to take a long time to try to sneak my pieces into his position. So I played rook a to c8, and my idea was actually just to plop the rook here, and then it does a lot of stuff on c5. Yeah. So he goes rook f1, taking over the half-open file. Now I went rook c5. So from here, so it's covering f5, so now the rook can't come into f5. It's attacking h5. It's eyeing this g5 square, which is going to hit both of these doubled pawns, and it's also supporting a minority attack against white's queen side. So maybe something like a5, b5, and then something like b4, or even a3. So suddenly, with this rook on c5, black has a lot of ideas. So white played g4. Now I just played slowly. I played h6, and the idea is pretty simple. I just want to fix the g4 pawn, and also take away any possibility of falling for an embarrassing back rank trick of some kind. So he played king e3. Now I played g6, and simply I just want to start opening up the position a little more, because my rooks are kind of suffocating at the moment. H takes g6, otherwise the h pawn would fall. Fg6, and now rook f6. And here I reached for my king, because I had planned to play king g7, but I decided I better not put my king on a forking square. So for example, this knight is threatening to come into e6 and fork my king and rook. Although it doesn't really do anything at the moment, it could be a problem later on for me. So instead I played rook g5, which is a better move. Just as an example, let's say king g7, he can go rook e6, and I can't take it because I'll go into a losing king and pawn ending. So instead I'd have to go like king f7. And I'm still winning here for sure, but it just seems to make my position a little bit more difficult. So instead I went rook g5, and now rook f4, just defending the g pawn and adding more pressure to e4. And now I played h5. So it pains me a little bit to undouble white's pawns like this, because suddenly the pawns aren't doubled anymore. But I'm doing this for a very good reason. I don't have any files to work with for my rooks. White has a pretty good grip on the f file, the d file is closed, my rook's tied down to the e4 pawn. All these things are kind of stifling my rooks. So I wanted to activate my g5 rook by playing this h5 move, and also potentially opening up the h file. So here, Dean played g3. There's not many good moves in this position. So he played g3, and now rook takes g4. I figured a trade of rooks would help me because it would unstick my pieces. Because I was feeling a bit cramped. So rook takes g4. Yeah, so I should be able to infiltrate now with my king and rook, but it's still going to be a bit of a process. H takes g4, knight e2. And now, I don't want anything sneaking into the f4 square to attack my doubled pawns, so I just played g5. And now, there's no hope of the black king ever coming in, and it takes away the best outpost for the knight, which is f4, or one of the better outposts for the knight. He still has d4, there's not much I can do about that. So he went c4. He wants to add more pressure to the e4 pawn by putting a knight on c3. Pretty obvious. So I went king g7, and now knight c3. And now just simply king g6. So if he takes this now, my king's going to step up, and he loses the knight. So the pawn's untouchable. So he goes knight e2, and now king f6. I'm basically avoiding any possibility of knight checks. So if I went to f5, for example, he could go knight d4. Something like this. And I'm just avoiding checks. There's no reason to give him any obvious moves. So then I played b3, or he played b3, king e5, knight c3, rook f8. And now the e4 pawn's indirectly defended again, because now if he takes this, then rook f3 check is going to win his knight. So then he goes knight e2. And then I played rook f1. A wee bit of triangulation. If the knight moves, I can bring my king in. If the king moves, I can cut the king off a little bit. So, I mean, as an example, if he brings the king back, right, then I can go rook f3, which is what happened. If he goes knight d4, then I can go rook f3 check, and this king and pawn ending here is just absolutely crushing for me. So something like a5 here, and he's going to quickly run out of moves. So a3 maybe, king d6, b4, a b4, king e5, and now in this position white's in Zugzwang. If the king moves, then my king will infiltrate, and if he pushes the pawn, my king can come here and win that pawn in the end. So here, instead of moving the knight, he did move his king. He didn't have too much choice. And now I went rook f3, just cutting the king off. So now he goes king c2. So the only thing left for black to do, I've infiltrated with my rook. My king is going to be next if I can get his knight to move. So the only other thing I need to do is create another weakness. I'm already eyeballing this g3 square. So I just need another target to attack. So I came up with this idea to play a5. And slowly Dean started to realize that he was absolutely lost here. The pressure is getting to be too much. Soon the king will be tied down to defending the b pawn, or it would have to defend the knight. Or the knight's going to have to move and leave this g3 pawn undefended. Something's going to be overloaded. So we went king d2, and then I went a4. So if he takes this now, for example, then I can just go rook a3, and both of these pawns are going to fall. And now now I have... I keep doing that. And then these two pawns will both be weak. So a nice little way to undermine his defensive structure. So he went king c2, and then I simply played a takes b, and now rook e3. And here white resigned. He can choose what he wants to give up. If the knight moves, the g pawn hangs, because it's tied down. If the king moves, the b pawn will hang because the king's tied down to that. And if neither one moves, then the knight will just drop. So all in all, a pretty convincing game, I think. A couple minor mistakes from white and the position kind of spiraled out of control. So a couple of key things to take from the game. Answer flank attacks with striking in the center if you can. Don't be lazy about calculation. That kind of screwed me over. The game could have been over a lot sooner. And endgames are best won when you have multiple weaknesses to attack. So that's the game. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Make sure to thumbs it up or subscribe or whatever you want to do. The next game I played Kevin Seidler, who's a 2100. So that game was really interesting. So I hope you guys will watch that one next. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.